He says he loves her. He listens, remembers, protects. He makes her feel seen, wanted. But behind every romantic gesture, behind every kind word, lurks obsession, paranoia, control. Joe Goldberg isn't just a stalker. He's a case study in covert narcissism, gaslighting, and moral disengagement, wrapped in a smile and whispered in a monologue. This isn't a love story. It's a warning, dressed like one. Unlike the loud, arrogant narcissist we often picture, Joe displays covert narcissism. Covert narcissists present themselves as quiet, vulnerable, even self-sacrificing, but they harbor deep feelings of entitlement and superiority. Joe believes he knows what's best for Beck. He believes he deserves love, attention, and control over her life. Psychologist Dr. Craig Malkin describes covert narcissists as having stealthy grandiosity. They don't demand power, they earn it through manipulation, sympathy, and caretaking. Joe curates a false self, an idealized persona built to meet Beck's emotional needs, while masking his true intentions. This psychological construct is often used by individuals with narcissistic or borderline traits to avoid abandonment or shame. Beneath the humble bookstore clerk lies a predator wearing politeness, like armor. Joe's obsession with Beck follows a psychological pattern often found in stalking and parasocial relationships. The obsession loop. He monitors her every move, internalizes her social media presence, and convinces himself they're soulmates. This is erotomania, a delusional disorder where someone believes another person, often a stranger or casual acquaintance, is in love with them. Joe's thoughts become fixated on Beck. The fantasy begins to replace reality. Each piece of information he gathers doesn't challenge his assumptions, it fuels them. From a cognitive psychology standpoint, this is known as confirmation bias, our tendency to interpret new evidence as confirmation of existing beliefs. Joe's version of Beck isn't real. He's fallen in love with an idea, not a person. Surveillance is Joe's primary weapon. He uses her phone, laptop, social media, all to gain power without consent. But what's most disturbing is how he frames his actions. To Joe, surveillance is protection. He rationalizes it as looking out for her. This mirrors behaviors found in intimate partner terrorism, a type of abuse characterized by domination, isolation, and obsessive monitoring. Joe constantly crosses boundaries, but rarely feels guilt. This is a trait linked to low cognitive empathy, the inability to understand another person's emotional experience outside your own logic. He believes Beck needs him, and because he watches her so closely, he convinces himself that he knows her better than she knows herself. Gaslighting is one of Joe's most subtle and sinister tools. He frequently lies by omission, distorts the truth, and makes Beck question her own reality. In Season 1, he isolates her from friends, like Peach, and manipulates their conflict to seem like he's the only one she can trust. This mirrors the psychological abuse framework known as coercive control. Coined by Professor Evan Stark, coercive control is about domination through invisible chains, emotional, psychological, and social. Joe uses guilt, misdirection, and perceived loyalty to keep Beck emotionally dependent on him. His control is not maintained through violence, until it has to be. It's psychological first. Violence is just the backup plan. Joe isn't a remorseless killer in the traditional sense. He experiences just enough guilt to make himself feel human, but not enough to stop. This is where moral disengagement comes in. Psychologist Albert Bandura described it as the process by which individuals convince themselves that ethical rules don't apply in a specific context. Joe reframes his violence as justice. Benji was a toxic narcissist. Peach was manipulative. By dehumanizing them, he bypasses moral self-sanctions and preserves his image as the good guy. This is known as advantageous comparison, when someone justifies their actions by comparing them to worse alternatives. In his mind, Joe isn't a monster, he's just cleaning up a messy world. Joe appears empathetic. He bonds with Paco, cares about children's books, and even seems emotionally affected by Beck's writing. But Joe uses what's known as instrumental empathy. Empathy not for connection, but for manipulation. He leverages emotional intelligence to build rapport, gain trust, and reinforce his role as protector. True empathy requires boundaries and mutual understanding. Joe violates both. Every kind act is ultimately a tool, a means to an end. Why do viewers find Joe likable, even attractive? Part of it is his voiceover, a technique that gives us direct access to his inner world, creating false intimacy. It's also the classic antihero appeal. He's broken, misunderstood, fixable. This reflects a psychological tendency known as cognitive dissonance reduction. We don't want to think we're rooting for a villain, so we find ways to justify his actions, just as he does. But make no mistake, Joe Goldberg is not a romantic. He's a walking case study in how love can be weaponized, how charm can mask control, and how the darkest minds often wear the kindest faces. If this breakdown gave you a new perspective on Joe Goldberg, hit like and subscribe for more deep dives into dark psychology and media analysis. Let me know in the comments, which psychological trait do you think defines Joe the most? And remember, love isn't obsession, protection isn't control. And the scariest villains don't always come with knives. They come with good intentions.